Good evening and welcome to 2020 Vision. A little bit late today. That's technology for you. But here we are with your news magazine programme for the week, hosted by me, Jenny Fisher of East London News. And today we're asking the question, Corona, who should be supporting the community? Should it be the council or is the community doing it for itself? And our first guest today, our second guest today is Maium, and we'll come to him in a minute. But our first guest today is Kerie. She's the Assistant Branch Secretary of Tower Hamlets Unison, and she's here representing Tower Hamlets Unison to tell us what's been going on in the council. Now, there's a thing called Tower Rewards. So, Kerie, welcome to 2020. Tower Rewards, how did it all begin?
Thanks very much, Jenny. It's good to be on 2020 Vision. There's a lot going on in the council at the moment, obviously with the whole COVID-19 crisis and the response. But I'm going to talk tonight specifically about Tower Rewards, which is what the council is calling a plan to change, or should I say, impose onto all council staff and staff in community schools a package of detrimental changes to terms and conditions of employment. And staff and unions have rebranded it as the Tower Robbery because it is going to, if they get their way, make some very serious detrimental changes to our employment contracts.
When did they first come up with the idea, Kerie?
Okay, so it's been quite a saga. It was first released, the package was first released at the end of January 2019. Would it be helpful if I went through some of the proposals at the time? Would that be helpful at all? So
sure,
people have a flavour. So they have changed some of these as part of the negotiation, but certainly when the package was first released, we were absolutely shocked. It was a slash and burn of terms and conditions, and unsurprisingly, a consultant had been brought into the council to do this, so no surprise there. There is a real sort of tenet running through it, and that was that they felt that they needed to pay the minority of staff in the principal officer grades a little bit more, but what they were saying is people in the middle to lower grades, you are being paid quite enough or perhaps too much. And they based this all on market intelligence. Okay, so we never really got to the bottom of
sort of how the other way around. That's upside down, isn't it, from what you expect of a Labour council?
Yeah, I mean, it was very quite shocking, actually, because it's the people in the middle to the lower grades where the number of roles, because of austerity, has shrunk by anywhere between 17 and 25%. So the people who have left through all of these compulsory and voluntary redundancies through austerity have been shouldering huge amounts of work. So the notion of actually you're paid quite enough and we're going to hack away some of your other benefits. I mean, staff were really not happy with the proposals.
But the unions, Unison's not the only trade union involved, is it? And so did you all come together to negotiate with the council?
So there's three recognised NJC unions in Tower Hamlets Council. There's Unison, which is by far the biggest, GMB and Unite. But what also was a concerning aspect of this negotiation is the NEU were invited to be involved. And
we should just explain to people the NEU is the New Education Union. It's largely the National Union of Teachers, as was. I can't remember who it joined with, but it's now the main union in the schools, isn't it, for teachers and support staff?
So no, just for teachers mainly. Right. Unison is by far the biggest union for support staff. But one of the reasons we were concerned about the NEU not being brought in is because staff employed in community schools, they're employees of the local authority. So aspects of Tower Rewards, if it is imposed on council staff, it has a direct impact on staff in schools. And the council really denied that that was the case. And in our view, and I believe it is entirely reasonable, completely backed up with expert legal advice from our union, is that it was an attempt to split the workforce. So you split the workforce, you don't have such a united force opposing it. But Unison certainly worked very closely with the NEU to challenge the narrative the council was putting out that it wasn't relevant to school staff.
So you said you'd been able to negotiate some changes to the policy.
So,
I mean, is it all okay now? And if it's not, why are they putting it forward?
When I told you about the pay scale issue, that was only one of a number of negative changes. Cuts to travel allowances, into the flexi scheme, ending severance, slashing a whole range of other payments and benefits. I mean, it would take a very long time to go into all of it. They also wanted to bring in performance-related pay, absolutely shocking for a Labour council, shocking. And they wanted to stop incremental grade progression. You had to be assessed by your manager every year to go up your grade. So really very sort of a very stridently negative way of approaching our employment and our view.
Yeah. So when they suggested that performance-related pay would be a good idea, did they suggest it for councillors?
Well, they didn't suggest it for councillors, but perhaps that's something we could suggest.
Yes, I think. Yeah.
But we did enter into a robust negotiation, and they did drop some of the negative aspects, but certainly still many remained. And I think it's only fair to say that there were, because the council has insisted that it's a whole package. They will not negotiate on individual items. It's a whole package. And within the whole package, there were a couple of sort of sweeteners. For example, there was a rent deposit scheme. But overall, when our members looked at the entire package, the vote always overwhelmingly was reject.
Maium, are there any questions you would like to ask Kerie at this point?
Yeah, I just had 2 questions, Kerie. Obviously, I don't want to go too much into, politics and all that. Just first one is regarding were there anything brought up within the Overview and Scrutiny Committee? Has anyone done anything about it, or was it brought up?
So I don't think it's been discussed in detail on Overview and Scrutiny Committee. It has been discussed on, I think, at least one of perhaps 2 occasions at the General Purposes Committee. But that was the last time it was scheduled for the General Purposes Committee was, I think, way back, towards the middle of last year. And it kind of stopped being discussed in committee. And I think one of the concerning aspects here is the Mayor delegated the power to the Chief Exec to do it all and run it all, where our view was very much this is major policy and could not be delegated to the Chief Exec. It needed to be dealt with within committee. But we've had no joy there. So I think quite a lot has happened behind closed doors, to be honest, in a way that is, there are some transparency questions from my perspective, certainly from the union's perspective.
And also my second one, in terms of BME engagement, I mean, were there any rapid engagement from the BME's point of view, from the staff?
Okay,
with the union?
Yeah, obviously we have a very diverse membership, and one of the things what we were really clear about as branch officers and our members wanted us to do was to do an independent equality impact assessment on these proposals, because it's really important that we do not accept just what the council was telling us, that we actually independently scrutinise them, and we have experts at our national office, and all they do is equality assessments. What is really worrying is the council has refused to give us the data that our independent experts need to do an equality impact assessment. I mean, the council has released a blizzard of paperwork. It purports to be quality impact assessments, but it is far too general, doesn't make sense. And it just literally can't be correct, because some of it gives everybody, regardless of ethnicity or gender or protected characteristics, a pay rise. When Tower Awards does not do that. And our belief is that they actually conflated and included within their figures the NJC pay lift, which is not part of Tower Awards. It is a contractual entitlement. So, we really are not happy we haven't been able to do that important and qualities work, because, anecdotally, and I think the information bears it out, the majority of people in the middle to lower grades, they're women, often BME, and it's important that we look closely at the impacts of these proposals on those particular groups.
Well, just for our viewers, we're here tonight with two guests, Kerie, who is the branch secretary of Tower Hamlets Unison, representing that union, assistant branch secretary, representing that union, and Miah, the chair of the Island Network. We're looking at Corona support, and we'll come on to that in a second. But if any of you have got any comments on this very strange situation going on in the council, please call us on 020 8 1234 020 1234 Come through to the studio and tell us your experiences as well. John Biggs, if you're listening, then we'd be very pleased to have you come along and join in, or any of your other councillors who are part of implementing this system. We'd love to hear from them. So that's the number if you would like to ring and ask Kerie a question or give us a comment. So we have to move on in the story. As Kerie says, we don't have time to go through all the details. I believe that the three unions actually, when it came to it, held a strike ballot and had a very good outturn.
So both the NEU and Unison, we did strike ballots, and yes, we hit the anti-union thresholds. We pushed through them. It was a major achievement. Those thresholds had been set to stop people being able to go on strike. So it was a very sort of significant achievement that the two largest unions in Tower Hamlets smashed through those thresholds. And we had planned coordinated strike action for March the 24th and the 1st and 2nd of April. The GMB did also hold a ballot, but they didn't hit the thresholds. But I think what is really important to recognise is that all three council unions, through all their indicative processes, the vast majority of members of all unions voted to reject. I think Unison and the NEU, we were just in a better position just to do our legal ballots and get through those thresholds as larger unions.
So there you were, set to go on strike at the end of March, at the beginning of April. And then, of course, we had a little virus come along.
And can I just say something a bit about that? Because I think the issue of COVID does link with Tower Awards, because we in the lead up to the lockdown, and no one knew there was going to be a lockdown, and about the 10 days beforehand, we were planning our strikes. And Unison and as did the NEU, we made a principled decision that we thought that it wouldn't be the right thing to do to proceed with industrial action when we instead should be supporting our community and the staff providing critical services. So we, in a good faith outreach, wrote to the Chief Executive and also to Mayor Biggs, calling on them to pause the dispute, pause the implementation, because this contract was due to be imposed on us without our consent on the 13th of April. So we invited them to pause this, and we'll come back to it after the public health emergency had passed. Initially, they both declined. We had some very formal letters, and I think it's fair to describe them as very passive aggressive, turning us down flat, that they were going to push ahead and impose regardless. Despite that, we decided to pause our strike action because of the public health emergency, and we thought we would act responsibly even if the council was not going to. And we were going to focus on our community instead. Interestingly enough, and I think we have to thank the community for a lot of really robust support, and also the Labour MP for Poplar and Limehouse, Ipsana, and a small handful of Labour councillors led by Councillor Gabriella Salva, who wrote open letters calling on Will Tuckley, the chief exec, to halt implementation. Also, a load of local GPs wrote to the paper saying how just perverse it would be to sack the whole workforce and offer re-engagement on the Tower Rewards contract in the middle of a pandemic. So lo and behold, one working day before the date of implementation, which was Easter Monday, a communication came out from the chief exec saying that they were going to pause implementation until the 16th of July.
Sorry, the 16th
So there's
of
a lot of, I've given you a lot of information.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No. I mean, that's what I think we needed. I mean, I don't know. Maium, had you heard about Tower Rewards and how serious everything was?
No, I heard things were happening behind the vaccine, about the staff and about all this what Kerie was mentioning, but I haven't specifically heard about the Tower Reward.
I think it's something that hasn't really come out, just how serious this is in the wider community. I mean, maybe John Biggs isn't listening, so he's not phoned in just yet, but we'd be very happy to have him on to talk about, why he felt it was necessary to change the terms and conditions so drastically. And why he...
Sorry, Jenny.
Yeah.
Kerie, were there any consultation with the staff? Were there any kind of...
Yeah, I mean, there has been consultation, and staff say they don't want it. It's like we've done 2 indicative ballots on a 1 vote, 1 person basis, and I think our reject outcome has been in the 80s. So 80%. So the vast majority of our members have given us an overwhelming sign that they do not want Tower Rewards. There's no doubt about that.
So where are we now, Kerie? When did you say the process has been suspended until?
So the council is saying it's going to impose the new contract on the 16th of July using a method called sacking and re-engagement, which is the most brutal and aggressive way of changing contracts of employment an employer can use. It involves, and this has already happened, people have been issued formal notice, 12 weeks notice. So you're formally dismissed, and then the next day you're offered re-engagement on the new detrimental contract. It is a very rare and aggressive way of changing contracts of employment without the consent of the workforce. And I cannot believe a Labour council that professes to be progressive is sacking and offering re-engagement to the entire workforce. A workforce which is just now providing critical, essential services to our community through this terrible public health emergency. They're working all the hours, they're working so hard, and that this council would sack and offer re-engagement of the people doing this work. It is truly shocking.
I mean, I don't know how it's going to work in schools, because I've done some research in that area, and certainly governing bodies haven't been giving agreement to having their staff sacked and re-engaged. So it all sounds a terrible mess.
So can I just say it's a little bit different in schools. School staff haven't been given their notice, but once the contract is implemented in Tower Hamlets, it opens the door for individual schools to start consulting and introducing the changes relevant to schools in school settings.
My research suggested some of them already have agreed in principle to adopt whatever Tower Rewards says, but not all of them, because it's all been so confused. And I think it sort of brings to mind some words. Let me think. What was something about the grotesque example of a Labour leader sat in the town hall writing to all staff, giving them redundancy notices. There's another Labour leader said something about that. Nothing very much good came of him. So there we are. for the moment, obviously, we're concentrating on the public health emergency, as you described, Kerie, but hopefully we'll be getting to a point where we're out of that, and then the union can meet again, and we have to sort of do all we can to help you publicise what's actually going on. Sorry, Maium, were you trying to come in there?
No, that's fine.
Right. Okay. So, Kerie,
I was going to say about were there any legal challenge or anything, but I know that's not going to.
Well, actually, it's actually worth commenting about that because we, in terms of this also being a Labour council, this council has just grabbed hold of the Tory anti-union laws and tried to use them to thwart ballots. We had a series of formal letters from the chief exec telling us they were going to seek an injunction in relation to our ballot notices. They didn't in the end about us, but they did for the NEU. They did actually file papers in the High Court to try and stop the NEU ballot, and they only withdrew it at the 11th hour. And I think I heard that the judge who was hearing the council's withdrawal application said it was very wise that the council had withdrawn its application for an injunction. So we have a Labour council who has just grabbed hold of the Tory anti-union laws and really tried to use them just to thwart our ballots just every step of the way. And I do not believe we can refer to our council as a progressive council anymore. I don't think it is.
And that's certainly something we'll be going on to talk about with Maium. So we can only repeat our call to the mayor or to the deputy mayors. We'd be happy to have a call from them as well. If not now, then next week. Or from any of the cabinet members who've rubber stamped this agreement. So obviously some of the councillors can't officially talk to us, but certainly those representatives who obviously back the scheme, we'd be happy to hear from them and ask them some questions. So I think at this point we'll let you go, Kerie Ann. Thank you for joining us. I know you've had a long day.
Nice to meet you all, and thanks so much to the community for all the solidarity that they're giving our members in Tower Awards and also as critical workers providing services. So stay safe, everyone. Good night.
Thanks them as well. Thank you, Kerie Ann. So, right, that's Kerie Ann leaving us there, but we have another guest while Kerie Ann tries to find her off switch. Just to have a little break from talking about Corona, I just want to note the what's happening around the East London boroughs, because obviously we are based in East London, and it's been a big day today because, as reported a couple of days ago in East London News, today has actually seen the first repatriation flights from Bangladesh. That's a local headline. A first charter flight has departed from Bangladesh today to bring home British travellers who are stranded in Bangladesh. That's far more yet to come. What's happening in Tower Hamlets? What does the council say on its website are the key stories? Key stories in Tower Hamlets are confirmations just come out today. Rains Foundation School will close on the 31st of August. There was an action in the High Court, but the judge has upheld the council's case. Rains Foundation School has been open, I think, at more than 300 years, and that is now going to close. In Hackney, the council website is mostly about COVID, and it's concentrating today on helping people stop smoking because smokers do get much worse symptoms and outcomes. Up in Newham, very sad news has come from Newham, and that is linked to Corona. And Mayor Roxana Fiaz has spoken up on behalf of everyone at Newham Council, offering condolences to the family and friends of a former councillor and former ceremonial mayor, Abdul Karim Sheikh, BEM. He's sadly passed away, having been diagnosed with Corona. He's been passed away at the age of 82. And so we add our condolences to those from the current mayor. He died on the 12th of April. In Barking and Dagenham, the young mayor has promised to raise some money for domestic violence during her term of office. I think, Jessica, you should talk to Councillor Lakshmi Shah Meenie Shah from Maium, who we had on the programme a couple of weeks ago and who's doing some great grassroots work on stopping domestic violence. So maybe we'll put you two in touch. Redbridge, the council is prioritising recycling this week. And because of that, some of its other refuse collection services have had to change. So there you are, if you live in Redbridge and the bins are not being emptied, it's because the recycling's getting prioritisation. And news in Havering, which is actually furthest, the easternmost end of our catchment area, but there's one facility which are used by people in Tower Hamlets. And today, this is very topical, very fresh news. The council has announced that its cemeteries are now going to reopen under the new government guidelines, which allow cemeteries to open under certain conditions. So sadly, that's going to be important news to a number of us in the East End. And Havering is also having a St George's Day series of events to raise money for local charities. So there we are. Looking across our region, that's what's going on here. And now let's, from the macro region, let's turn to the micro part of Tower Hamlets that you and I are both from, Maium. Miah, who was a councillor some years ago on the Isle of Dogs, is now the chair of the Island Network. Can you tell us about that organisation, Maium? What is it, and what is it that you're chairing?
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you for inviting me. Island Network is a community organisation based on the Isle of Dogs, and the name, as itself says, it's a network. It's a group of organisations. I think it's about 10 or 11 organisations come together, and basically we work with everyone in terms of partnership work, like what we're doing now at the moment with COVID-19. And previously, before COVID, we had meeting with various organizations, corporate organizations, talking about their local area, what's happening, kind of arranging public meetings, consultation, things like that. So,
well, there's a lot to consult about on the island, isn't there? There's, amazingly, I mean, when I first came to the island in about 1982, there was about 6,000 dwellings. We've got 4 times that now. So it's really all packed in. And we're getting more, of course. Thousands more dwellings are being built on the island or about to be built, or somebody's thinking about building them, or goodness knows if we get a recession if that will go ahead. But there's certainly plenty to consult about. So the network was a natural body to respond when the lockdown came. So what did you actually do when the lockdown came, Maium? What did the network get involved with?
Well, I mean, I am a person, I'm always up front. I'm always, on the ground. That's what I believe in. And during the difficult times, I think people like myself, they need to be there on the ground working for people. Ever since day one, I've been on the ground. And the Island Network, we got everyone together, all the organizations together. And we kind of approached various organizations like the Canary Wharf Group, One Housing, and we said, look, we need support, we need resources, and we need to help people out. And one good thing about the network or the group of organizations, we have local knowledge. We know, easily we've identified where the need is, who is vulnerable, where the need is to go, and we kind of organized, food packs for vulnerable residents, because at that time when we first started, the government didn't even announce any kind of support for they didn't even announce that this, we're going to use this criteria, or this type of people can't come out. It wasn't even announced. So what we've done, we've kind of got together and we started off distributing food bags, essentials, food bags like pasta, noodles, beans, bread, milk, bug rolls, things like that. That's how we started it off. Then we've realized the demand is there. People started calling us. I need this, I need that. Then we've started with hot food. So and we continue doing that. So we do that every Friday now.
Oh yeah.
So we're providing essential hot food, and if we're lucky enough to get further funding, then we can concentrate on food packs as well. But at the moment, we're providing hot food. This is more demand at this stage, and we're looking after, I think, just over 120 residents, vulnerable residents on the Isle of Dogs. This is what we're doing at this stage.
Yes, well, that's so. First, you were funded by the Canary Wharf Group. That's good. They found a bit of small change for you, and then by One Housing Group. So now I know why they weren't getting the pigeons who were nesting on my balcony, off of my balcony. They were busy helping you, Maium, but never mind. And it's awful when you have pigeons nesting on your balcony. You become a woman obsessed, I can tell you. Okay, so then after that first round of funding, you went to the local mosques. Didn't they fund you as well?
Yeah, I mean, until last week, everything kind of came to an end. We didn't have any. So what I done, we approached the mosque, the Island Network, and all the organisation. We approached the mosque. We said to them that, we need something. We need support from you. We got no money left. We need to continue supporting these people. So the West Ferry Mosque, the Al-Aqsa on St. John State, and the DCO, and also the Millwall community, and also two other organisations. They've donated. I think it was about £1,000 they donated. So with that £1,000 in partnership with NISA, we kind of we bought essentials for, I think, for about 110 residents. So that's what we distributed last week.
That's good. I mean, you mentioned NISA, which very much used to be a local community shop. I think the community used to be very involved with that shop, get a lot of support from it. And of course, it's been in the same family, that shop, been run by the same family for well over 30 years. Now, I think George is the present owner or person in charge. And I think his father used to meet Peter Shaw on a regular basis when Peter Shaw was the MP down here. So you can see how long ago it was. Talk to George about it. But that shop is still struggling on. I know One Housing Group welcomed the shop by putting their rent up, tight, but it's still, the shop is going on, so it's good. It does employ local people as well, so it's good to see some funds going back into what community resource.
I mean, George is a very, he's a very humble man. I've known him since I was 12, 10, 11, 9, maybe 9, And I mean, he's always helpful. Every time we go there, he's willing to help. I mean, he even receives phone calls sometimes that they deliver there, I need to deliver there. Then he passes it on to us, and we try to do work. And also another organisation who's been helpful is the Docklands FC, a local football club, and they've been really helpful. And it's a partnership, Jenny. It's community coming together. It's not about myself or a certain individual. It's about community coming together and helping the community.
So what can you bring to this? I mean, as you say, nowadays there are systems you can get a voucher, particularly if you've got children on free school meals, and you can go and redeem your voucher in a supermarket, and there are some other schemes as well. So what is it that you bring in your response to the health emergency that perhaps the council couldn't do as well?
Well, we bring few things actually. The first one is there are many vulnerable people. They are unable to register because you have to go and register and say to the government that you need, you're vulnerable. There's a need. And there's many people out there, they can't register. They forget about making a phone call. They can't. Some of them they can't even move. They have to rely, a couple of days until their carer turns up, and they do it for the. So these are the type of people we're supporting, and also there are various people who do not qualify for some of them they don't even qualify for the vouchers, and they can't get any support. So we have to cater them as well, and also there are many illegal immigrants around here, but we have not had any. We have not supported any. This is something I want to look into. But these are the people that need support at this moment. There are many. I'm getting calls from Whitechapel. I'm getting calls from various parts of London. People with illegal immigrants, they've got nothing to eat. They've got no support whatsoever.
So what we're asking people to do, I think, is if you are in Manchester Road, just opposite Marshfield Street, you'll see the local NISA shop. So do stop there and buy your goods if you can. Keep supporting our shop. But also, if you can maybe spare a bit of funding, then maybe put it the way of the Island Network. How can people contact you, Maium, if they've got a bit of cash they'd like to donate?
We've got our email and or my number, my email I can provide. That's not a problem. I mean, it's on the website as well. There is a website.
For what? For the Island Network?
There's a website for the Canary Wharf page, and my email and my number is there.
Okay. So, and I think we've got your contact details on East London News as well. Yeah.
I mean, I get phone calls, all the time. There's people out there who need support all the time. Sometimes I get phone calls like, I need bread, I need milk, and we do it. I have, dedicated volunteers, and they're doing it, and I salute them.
Yeah, so you can see pictures of the team going out on the East London News articles as they sort of fan out across the estates. Okay, Maium, I haven't warned you about this, so let me just give you a test. Let's just take you as a sort of popular opinion. How many cases of COVID do you think there are in Tower Hamlets? Obviously, that's ones that have actually been tested and identified and recorded on the national charts. How many do you think in Tower Hamlets?
Oh, God. At least under 300?
It's actually 560 as of earlier today. So that's about the equivalent of a 3-form entry primary school. So it's not really, when you think about it, that many. But I mean, really, that's what we're doing in lockdown, isn't it? Making sure that it's contained and it doesn't...
Yeah, that's what it is, yeah. It's people staying at home and not coming out, especially with the government, respecting the government's instruction. That's what it is, yeah.
I mean, you've been out more than I have because you've been delivering the help. I mean, how do you feel things are going? I've only ventured out twice. I've only ventured out twice or 3 times since lockdown. And on the last occasion, as you know, I don't live. I live at height, so I had to use the lift to come down. And as I came down in the lift, there was a group of lads, teenagers, maybe a bit older, hanging around, obviously waiting for the lift to come. And they just sort of stood there like they normally do. And I did say to them, I made my way through and I turned back and said to them, have you not listened to the news? Could you not stand back a bit when someone's coming out, to keep social distance? Do you know what they said to me? One of them said, you could use the stairs.
Oh.
I mean, if I hadn't been in self-isolation, I think I would have kicked him.
Yeah.
And then it was about 10 o'clock last night. I was in my kitchen and a family came past my kitchen window. And there was young kids and 2 or 3 older people as well, maybe a parent or 2, I don't know. And I thought, it's 10 o'clock at night. I wonder if they've just been out for their daily walk. I get a bit officious like that. I didn't do anything about it. But I'm just wondering, from what you've seen around the island, I mean, are people observing the lockdown very strictly? Or are people sitting around in St John's Park? Or how's it going out there?
Well, Jenny, St John's Park, Millwall Park is normally very busy. People are respecting the distance and people are doing their best. Sometimes it gets a bit very busy, but people do try to distance themselves. But in terms of the young population, I think we have an issue there. I mean, even I see a group of people outside NISA. I approached them. I see a group of people outside St John's Park. They just, I think they just feel, not all of them, some of them, they just feel they're not going to get that virus. It's not going to come to them. They're young. And I think it's about giving them that kind of guidance or information. And it's not been, there isn't been such, no one's been approaching them. I think this is something, there have been many failures, and this is one of the failures. Engaging the youth generation. We have been failing on that. Yes, if there's an issue, they're not going to, stay around at home, for so long. but there isn't anything. That we even the council, no one has really planned out anything for the youth.
Well, I know. Actually, I must say that my block does actually contain a number of people who are really, really good and really sweet in normal times.
Yeah.
And all sorts of people will offer to carry my shopping or just help out, which is really nice of them. So I don't want to give the impression that we're not friendly in the East End, but I did think the other night was a bit bad. But look, we've identified something. So I imagine that John Biggs is probably having a bath at the moment. So that's probably why he hasn't rung in. But if somebody can tip him off. That's two things, John. Come on and talk to us about Tower Rewards and why you feel that it's necessary to change the staff terms and conditions. And come on and tell us what you're doing to engage the youth. Do you think they're school-age children, school-age teenagers, Maium, or do you think they're
No,
people
I think it's above school age. I think it's between college and after college age. Yeah,
maybe
that's the age. That's the group we're talking about. Yeah, yeah. I think the school age ones are behaving so far. I think they're indoors. They're sticking to. For example, my children, they're indoors all the time, and my neighbours and many others, including Samuda, I haven't really seen them hanging around. Yeah,
that's good.
But I mean, I had a question for Mr. Biggs. Is what I mean, the Tory government. I mean, I know what the Tories are like, but at least they're spending some kind of money. They're investing some kind of money. I really want to know what the mayor is. I haven't heard any kind of commitment or anything he's been spending for the resident, especially with all this situation that we're facing at the COVID-19. I really want to know what kind of investment he invested.
Well, we got a letter from him, didn't we? I've got mine here still from the other night. He's told us what.
But this is all government, not him.
No, this is a letter from. There we are. That's the letter from Tower Hamlets.
Well, I've got one here as well. I've scribbled on it. Can you see? It's all scribbled. I'm making notes on it.
Well, John Biggs scribbled on this as well. Sorry, I can't just holding this up all wrong. But
this is.
There's his signature. So this is from John Biggs. This is not the government. This is John Biggs, and he tells us that coronavirus is also called COVID-19, and things are moving quickly. It does give some email addresses, some websites, and basically tells you to go on the council website. And we know that there was a dedicated phone number launched for vulnerable people. It's not on the leaflet, but we I think it's 0207 364 3030, wasn't it? It's not on the leaflet, so I can't remember. But there's nothing special. Maybe something's delivered since. There's something else I know on the Tower Hamlets website saying they're doing something about commercial rents. They do have some shops in the borough, and there's something happening about commercial rents. I didn't read it. I assume it's some sort of rebate. Anyway, well, that's something.
Well, I mean, I done a petition. I think when all this started off about giving a 3-month rent, freeze. I'm not sure if they've come back. I think he's listened, and he is kind of working on its way. I think they will be getting it very soon. But in terms of residents, in terms of vulnerable residents, I think there's not been enough done in terms from the council or from the administration. I think there needs to be more. I mean, for example, on the Isle of Dogs, they provided hot food. They didn't want to do that until I raised it, the resident raised it. So this is a typical example.
What you're referring to is the Easter holidays.
Yeah.
I know the council is providing schools and similar outlets with food parcels to give to children who would have been getting a free school meal. So that
why just Easter? Why not carry on?
No, it is carrying on. Well, it isn't. It isn't. I think the idea is that usually the council has a big free school meals system which feeds children their lunch in school. And that's been replaced by a sort of packed lunch, which is being distributed through schools, a little food pack, and that's supposed to substitute for the children not getting their free school meals. There's also government vouchers that can go to children who usually get free school meals, and I know some schools have been very active in promoting those. And I know that a number of schools have also approached local businesses. They've raised funds They've tapped into other areas of funding, and they've been able to offer additional safety measures, safety blankets of food for children that, in families they know to be vulnerable. And then of course, I think what you're referring to is during the Easter holidays, of course, children don't get their free school meals.
Yeah.
And so these 4 feeding stations were set up so that children could go and get a hot meal if they needed one. Also the families could, I suppose. And I think we all noticed that most of them were sort of grouped in central Poplar, weren't they? Or that sort of no man's territory in between Poplar and Bow. And I think one was almost edging off towards Whitechapel, but didn't quite get there. And you're right, there's sort of nothing down on the island. Did that change? Did they put something down in the end?
Yeah, there's one just near your house in Samuda, Club 55.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that's fine, Jenny, but what about the self-employed people? I mean, they're not getting in the government. They don't qualify for the government. If they're getting working tax credit, for example, they don't qualify. They don't get that. But they're not working at the moment. So
I must say that
there's a responsibility for work, self-employed people. I mean, there's so much could have been done, and I want to know what was the council's investment.
Yeah, I mean,
COVID-19. There's no point referring to the government.
We have to make it clear neither Maium nor myself are qualified benefits advisors, so we are not in a position to give anyone formal advice on their income. And obviously we do, both of us thank, and I'm sure our viewers do as well, the council staff who are going the extra mile. As Kerie said earlier, a number of them are. That's why they call the strike action off. I must say, actually, my bins are getting emptied on my estate very well at the moment. So I don't know if that's because the contracts come back in-house.
It wasn't when all this started off. I mean, we all knew the picture of Tower Hamlets, how it was in terms of the waste.
But things are going better now. And so we're grateful to the workers on the ground. And I'm sure that even senior staff have been involved in some issues as well. But perhaps what we're saying to the administration is we need to know a bit more about it. And there's a chunk of, because we need to scrutinise what's going on. And it's the communities that will be able to see if there's a chunk of the population that is falling down a trap, isn't it? Because you're right. I mean, there's a number of the population of Tower Hamlets residents work in the hospitality industry. That's not just the traditional Bangladeshi people working in restaurants around London. I mean, there's also a lot of other creatives as well working in and around hospitality. The creatives who work in advertising and so forth. None of them are actually in work at the moment, and cabbies and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's got a habit of blaming the government, blaming the previous mayor, blaming people. But now is an opportunity for him to serve the people of Tower Hamlets who are deprived, who are struggling.
Well, I think we probably should blame the government, to be honest.
And I want to know what investment is. What was the investment for the COVID-19?
We'll ask him for a full report. So sorry, John. When you get out of the bath, you're going to find out you've got a whole lot of homework to do. We'll be in touch. But I think we have to conclude by saying the community has a lot to give, and don't ignore us when you do your plans, but work with us because we can actually come up with the information that you need. I think that pretty much sums up a lot about council services. Maybe if we hadn't all been, or so many of us hadn't been sold off to housing associations, maybe the community would be more together. But there we are. That's a legacy that we have to live with now. So there we are. Right, I think we could. I gave the figures for Tower Hamlets earlier, 560 cases, just to let people across East London know how that compares. It's almost exactly the same in Hackney with 568. Newham, if you're in Newham, I'm afraid you're leading the East London table with 878. Barking and Dagenham's got it a bit easier with 408 diagnosed cases. And Redbridge, they like round numbers, Redbridge, they've got 600 exactly diagnosed cases so far. And out in Havering, it's 569, almost the same as Tower Hamlets and Hackney. So no protection out there in the leafy suburbs. That's great. Thank you very much, Maium, for coming on. Thank you for all your work. And keep telling us about it, and we'll keep reporting it in East London News. Thank you to all our viewers. Thank you very much for watching. Sorry we're a bit later tonight because of extra shows on Vodcasts. And from obviously when we get to next week, we're going to have Ramadan starting. So for the weeks of Ramadan, we will be coming on slightly earlier. I think if you watch your Facebook page, you'll see, but I think we're talking about maybe a 6 o'clock or 6:30 start. And do contact us and let us know. I think next week we're going to be looking at some other types of community organisations that have been closed down and how are they managing. One issue that we covered this week in East London News was Spitalfields City Farm, and here's an interesting way that they fall in between the different sorts of provision. They've had to close the farm to visitors, so they've got no income. But of course they can't furlough their workers because they've got to go in and feed the animals. So because they're still working, they're not eligible for government assistance. So there we are. There's another catch-22. Right, okay, now I'm really going to wind up now. Thank you very much for watching. Let other people know that we're on. Contact us if you have a community issue based in East London to share with other people. And we'll see you at an earlier time next Tuesday. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.